1 minute, you're just an average guy doing an average job on an average day. When something happens that changes everything in your world, and nothing will ever be average again. Today's episode, it's pretty special. Many of you in the cryptid community have heard the name Joe Barger. Well, I am honored to say that after contacting Joe, I have his blessing to tell the story of his heart-stopping, reality-changing nightmare encounter with a Dogman. Welcome to the InBetween. I'm Carol Ann, and this is Joe's story. Joe is your average Joe. After serving 6 years in the Army, he settles down with a wife and an average job and spends his free time doing what average Michigan men do: little hunting, little target shooting. And by the time he's in his 50s, that average job is as a short-haul trucker. And on an average summer day in 2017, Joe is traveling his regular route, delivering about 43,000 pounds of paper from Traverse City, Michigan. It's about 7 p.m. on a picture-perfect June evening. The sun is shining and the temperature is just warm enough that opening the windows on the day truck's cab brings in cool, fresh air. As Joe's driving along the 2-lane highway through the Manistee National Forest, he notices a leak in an air hose on the trailer. Not a big deal. He carries tools with him so he can take care of small problems like this himself, so he doesn't have to wait for someone to come and fix it for him. He just happens to be right at a snowplow turnaround where the road is a little wider, so he can pull off the road enough to not obstruct traffic. So he pulls the truck to the side, grabs his tool bag, and jumps down from the cab. Little does he know that this is his last average moment on Earth. He gets a bad feeling as soon as his feet hit the pavement. Something's not right. That hair standing up on the back of your neck, not right. He looks around, but can't see anything wrong, so he just lets it go and focuses on fixing the truck. Joe locates a small crack in the hose by the back brake chamber and starts to fix it. If he's lucky, the repair will last him at least until the end of his run. As he's fixing the crack, he hears some rustling and small branches breaking just inside the wood line of the forest, which is set back about 30 yards from the road. He hears a strange vocalization, like nothing he's ever heard before in all of his years as a hunter. Whatever it is, doesn't sound natural. But he doesn't think too much about it. It is a pretty wild area, and Joe's one of those guys who's not really afraid of anything. But that feeling of dread in his stomach is not getting any better. He looks over towards where the sounds are coming from and can see something moving, where light and shadow seem to be bouncing off something moving around. But it's too dark in there to be able to see what it is. Knowing full well he is in black bear country, he hurries to finish the fix, which takes him all of 5 minutes, and hops back up into the truck, not wanting to take the chance of tangling with a bear. He starts the truck and checks the pressure gauge. Looks like the fix is holding for the moment, so he gets the truck in motion once again. And that's not as easy as it sounds. He stopped at the bottom of a long incline, and his load is really heavy, so it takes a while to get that kind of weight moving again. But at least he's moving. As the truck is slowly gaining speed, Joe checks his driver's side mirror, looking for traffic as he moves back into the lane. He's clear. In fact, so quiet tonight that he doesn't think a single car has passed him the entire time he was stopped. He easily moves back onto the road and is on his way. But then, something's off. As Joe is looking ahead, driving the truck, he notices in his peripheral vision that the light coming from his right side mirror, so the passenger side, has gone dark. Joe glances over to see what's going on over on that side of the truck. And what he sees right outside of his open cab window scars his very soul from that moment on. Right outside the window is a creature with the face of what looks like a wolf, but it's so unbelievably big that it takes up the entire window. It's running alongside the truck on 2 legs at a seemingly leisurely pace. And when I say big, I mean this thing is actually stooping down while running along to look inside the window at Joe. Keep in mind, Joe is over 6 feet tall, and by his own estimates, his own head is sitting at about 9 full feet off the ground. So for this thing to have to stoop down to look in the window means it, standing upright, would be in the neighborhood of 10 or more feet tall. Time slows down as Joe's mind tries to understand just how it is that he can be looking at what he can only comprehend is some kind of werewolf just outside his truck window. He's heard of Bigfoot before and knows for a fact that they are a real thing. He actually saw one himself when he was in the Army. But what he is looking at right now does not exist in his reality. He's never even heard of a Dogman, so werewolf is the closest thing his mind can come up with, as this creature is just trotting alongside the truck, which is up to about 25 miles an hour at this point. Joe can see its broad, human-like shoulders and its arms dangling in front of it. He watches it lift its left arm. Its claws appear on the bottom edge of the open window and scratch the paint and rubber seal, almost as if it's testing to see if the window is open. The window is open! Joe's head explodes with the realization that his window is wide open and starts fumbling to find the switch to close it, followed quickly by his second realization that with this thing, wouldn't matter anyway. Whatever this thing is, it's solid black with a thick mane of hair, like a lion's mane, starting at its ears and flowing all the way down to its shoulders. And its head is so big, like a grizzly bear, that Joe estimates that it would fill an entire laundry basket. Its tongue is as big as a cow's tongue. Its hands look like human hands, or maybe raccoon hands, with what might have been opposable thumbs, but they also had pads on the underside like a dog. Its claws are also solid black, about the thickness of a cigar, and in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 inches long. Its fingers are 8 to 10 inches long, and the hand itself is so big that if you splayed it out, it would cover the size of the truck's steering wheel. That's somewhere between 18 to 22 inches across. It had tufts of hair at the tops of its ears, and the hair seemed to have a silvery, almost translucent effect at the ends. Its face is pretty close to that of a German shepherd or wolf, but with a slightly shorter snout. Everything is black except for the teeth and the eyes. And the teeth are brilliant white, like it never missed a dentist appointment white, about the thickness of Joe's thumb, and also in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 inches long, tapering down to a nice point. He can even see a scar on its muzzle. And its eyes are a bright yellow or amber color. All in all, Joe says if this thing hadn't been a walking nightmare, would have been a really beautiful creature. Its eyes aren't like regular animal eyes. They seem to have an intelligence behind them, and they're darting all around like it's trying to size up the situation and Joe inside the truck. It looks right in Joe's eyes, and Joe immediately gets a message. He doesn't know whether it's some kind of paranormal mind speak or his interpretation of the situation, but Joe hears in his head,
"I gotcha, and there's nothing you can do about it."
Joe is desperately trying to keep his mind, which is moving at speeds heretofore unknown to him, enough in check to keep the truck on the road and going straight as it continues up the hill, as his subconscious wakes up and returns a thought back to the monster. Oh, you think I can't do anything about it? Well, watch this. Years of army training and countless weekends of target shooting kick into gear. And without even realizing what he is doing, Joe reaches into the space between his seat and his cooler and pulls out his Smith & Wesson Governor 410 revolver. In the same instant, the creature's face seems to recognize what's in Joe's hand. He fires 2 shots at its head at point-blank range. And his gun doesn't have just any old ammo. He has it loaded with solid copper hollow point maximum expansion bullets that open up to 1.5 inches wide spinning blades. One shot finds its mark either through the eye socket or temple area, and the Dogman goes down instantly, like he had just hit a clothesline. Joe quickly checks his side mirror, where he can see a cloud of dust as the Dogman hits the gravel on the side of the road with its arms and legs stiff as a board. And he recognizes from his years of hunting the telltale sign of a brain shot. He watches it mow down weeds as it slides down the embankment and sees the full body for the first time. It is literally as big as a horse, with arms and legs about as big around as Joe's waist, and he guesses it must weigh in at about 1,000 pounds. Its torso is pretty human looking until you get to the long tail, which is about 5 feet long. Its feet look like canine feet, but a little bit longer than a dog paw and rounder, and they are about the size of a dinner plate. He keeps driving with a million things going through his head as his ears are ringing from the shots fired inside the cab. Am I losing my mind? Did I just jump into some other reality? But then he thinks, wait, I gotta see it. I gotta know if this really did just happen. And if it really did just happen, I gotta know that it's dead. Now, whether that means he has to shoot it again or run it over with his truck, he doesn't really care. But he couldn't live with himself if he knew he'd let this thing live. He has to make sure it is dead. So at the top of the hill that he's been driving up this whole time, there's a small picnic area. It's not meant to be a semi-truck turnaround, but he does it anyway, sacrificing a few small tree limbs in the process. Takes him maybe 5 minutes or so to get turned around, and as he comes back down the hill, he sees the exact spot where the werewolf thing went down. The weeds are all smashed and flattened. Can't miss a big black lump the size of a horse, right? But it's gone. What is there is a Jeep with a couple standing by the side of the road. Being more than a little concerned for their welfare, Joe stops the truck and as nonchalantly as possible asks them, "Need any help?" The couple seem a little standoffish or skittish, and they just tell Joe, "No, we're fine. We just stopped because we thought we saw a couple of really big bears or something fighting and one dragging the other into the woods." And Joe looks at the spot and he can clearly see a path through the weeds where something has been dragged into the woods. And he gets the distinct impression that what they saw weren't bears, and that they wanted to tell them that they weren't bears, but couldn't bring themselves to actually say what they saw. And Joe asks, "So you saw 2 of them?" And they answer, "Oh yeah. And he thinks, oh, good God, there's more than one of these things around? Is there a whole pack? So after exchanging a few more pleasantries, there's not much more to say, so they exchange goodbyes and Joe starts to pull away. But as he does, he notices a few odd things about their Jeep. First, it had white plates, which are not Michigan plates. These are government plates. And they have a shotgun at the ready sitting up in the back seat. Interesting, but whatever. All Joe wants to do right now is get home. He probably shouldn't have been driving a truck in that state of mind, but too bad. He certainly isn't going to stick around or park anywhere near there. He is getting home as fast as he can. After that day, Joe zombies his way through life for about a week before he can pull himself together and re-engage in life to any degree. He just keeps thinking that it had to have been God guiding his hand that day, not him. That if he had stopped to think about what he was doing, he would have screwed it up. And all that would be left is an empty truck on the side of the road with a missing driver. In his mind, this is probably the most terrifying thing that anybody could ever go through. Worse than any combat situation, because at least there you know what you're dealing with and you're in a reality that you comprehend. Joe has never been afraid of anything except this thing. He doesn't understand why it didn't get him, because if it wanted him, it could have easily gotten him when he stopped to fix the truck. He saw it. He just didn't know at the time what he was seeing. Joe tells no one, and for the next 6 months to a year, tries to manage the nightmares and the PTSD all by himself before finally confessing his secret to his wife, who says, "Why didn't you tell me?" Joe's response, "Who's gonna believe me?" He also confides in his sister, who's way more familiar with cryptids than he is, who immediately tells him, "You need to share your story." Takes Joe about another year before he can gather the fortitude to go public. But when he does, he reaches out to Lance Hightower from the Cryptid Brothers Investigation of Oklahoma to tell his story. But he's not quite ready to go full on public yet. So he tells his story to Lance, who narrates it on his Monster 911 podcast. That's when a whole different kind of trouble starts. About 3 months later, he's at a scale house where semis pull in to have their truck weight checked when the state patrol tell him, "Get comfortable. The feds want to talk to you." Joe has no idea why the feds would want to talk to him, but it's not like he's got much choice, so he waits. After a few hours, a black sedan with white government plates, just like the Jeep, pulls up, and a couple of very pissed off federal officials in dark suits come sauntering up, exuding anger and irritation and flashing badges so fast that Joe can't even see where they're from. They say, "You killed our asset." Joe's head starts racing, trying to figure out what in the hell these guys are talking about. The only thing he's killed in the last couple of years is that that thing was your asset? And now you're mad because I killed it? Obviously, somebody heard his story come out on the podcast, and these guys are now assigned to damage control. They want him to stop talking. But they're not done. They go on to tell him something like, "We can do a lot of things to make sure you don't talk about this anymore. Can't keep a trucking job if you have a dirty drug test. Those dirty drug tests could happen. Might even have something happen with your money." They've done their homework and must know that Joe has a concealed carry license because they tell him, "We need your gun and your phone." Joe gives them his phone and the rifle he has in the truck, but not the gun he used to kill the Dogman. After playing bad guy for a while, they give him his phone back. And Joe asks, "What about my gun?" And they basically tell him, "Don't call us, we'll call you, and you'll be lucky if you even get it back. And keep your mouth shut about all of this, or we can make your life miserable." With that, they let him go. But just a few days later, Joe's bank accounts are frozen. And they don't stay frozen for long, but it's enough for Joe to get the message. Obviously, These guys can do whatever they want, and now they have his rifle. Who knows what future crime scene that could show up in? So Joe shuts up. For a while. But time is a funny thing. It has the ability to smooth the sharp edges of a painful situation and shrink its influence on you until it is small enough that you can see past it and see a different outlook. And that's exactly what happened to Joe. Over time, and with lots of deep soul searching, he finally and fully realizes that these things are real and they're out there and they're hurting people, and he has a duty and an obligation to let people know. He needs to at least try to warn us so we can be prepared both physically and mentally for a confrontation when we head into the woods. And he needs us to know that these things are just like any other living being in that they can be killed. Kind of important information. So he starts telling his story to people and doing interviews with Dogman researchers like Barton Nunnally and Jeff Nadolny on his Dogman and Paranormal Research channel, knowing there are a lot of people who are going to think he's full of crap, but some won't. Some will hear him. Some will listen. And maybe they'll have an advantage in knowing what's out there, an advantage that he never had. But he still has questions. How many of these things are out there? How much would something this big, the size of a full-grown horse, need to eat every day? Where did the body go? It was way too big for one or even two people to drag away. Personally, if other dogmen came in and dragged the body away, that shows a level of intelligence that scares the crap out of me. And are they like other canines that hunt in packs? One thought that disturbs Joe to this day is a nagging feeling that the creature he saw wasn't the one he needed to worry about, but just the distraction. And that by being both prepared and well-trained, with a little help from God to boot, he screwed up the plan to distract him from his right while the real threat approached from his left. He never saw anything on his left, but that question, that feeling, still haunts him today. And what about the feds? Well, they certainly kept tabs on Joe for a while, going so far as to even put a tracker on his car. And one day, out of the blue, Joe finds an unfamiliar box in the back of his pickup. What's in it? His rifle. So who knows? They may still be out there watching from a distance even today. But I think the cat's out of the bag on this one, because Joe is done being scared. And I think he has the better weapon, the truth. Isn't it amazing how one encounter lasting no more than 15 to 20 seconds can not only change your entire worldview and alter the trajectory of your entire life, but mushroom out to change countless other lives as well? All I can say is that I sincerely hope to get the opportunity to meet Joe someday and talk to him about this paradigm-flipping experience in person. If you're brave enough to venture forth to hear about another close call with the Dogman, click on this video right here for Brandon's Dogman encounter. Until next time, be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.